If you died tomorrow, what would be said of you? See, I know how this conversation often goes because I've sat with dozens of families after the passing of a loved one. I've heard the countless stories and families sharing the many memories. And don't get me wrong, it's always a privilege to hear how families remember their loved ones. But sometimes, as you hear the stories, you can't help but wonder whether those people had any real impact. You think, did he make a mark on the world? Did she make a difference? And what about you? What about you? Beyond your immediate family, has anybody's life changed because of you? In the book of Ecclesiastes, the teacher, the Koheleth, has one of these life-reckoning reflections. It's as though he looks back over his life and recognizes that it's all folly, sheer madness, chasing after the wind. And you look at our pursuits, they are in large part trivial. Trivial. I mean, think about it. From infancy, what are we taught more than anything else? We're taught to be consumers. We're taught to consume. I mean, almost before we're capable of cognitive thought, television ads are targeting us and we're bombarded. Our senses are literally overwhelmed with what we must buy and what we have to have and what we simply cannot live without. And what happens when children are targeted like that and bombarded like that? They ask for stuff. And parents buy that stuff. We buy it because God forbid that little Jaden, little Billy, or little Susan doesn't have the latest, greatest, whatever. And in school, we tell our children to excel and do well. We make sure that they're in the right playgroups, the right organized sports. I mean, people come to VBS and demand that their children be placed with other children. The right groups, all to enhance our child's ability to get into the right schools, in with the right folks. Helicopter parents, tiger parents descend on school administrators and they challenge any grade that their child gets that is not the ultimate, because of course our children are the most gifted, the most capable, the most intelligent children ever known to man. And when we spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year to get our children into the right colleges, well, it's all right. It's worth it. How else are they going to come out and graduate and get those six-figured salaries? And they need that. Of course they need that. Why? So they can start the cycle all over again. so that they can marry, so that they can have children, so that the consumption can continue at higher and higher rates. Sounds sadly empty when verbalized in that way, doesn't it? But it's what we value and applaud as society. I mean, we applaud people who have distinguished themselves with such personal achievements. We celebrate those who have excelled academically and parlayed that success into exceptional careers. We admire people who've made hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, and we call those same people shrewd when they're able to invest and accumulate their wealth so that that wealth is available to pass on to their progeny. To me, this is the epitome of that unhappy business that the Koheleth speaks about. It's a true chasing after the wind, because this is an upward spiral that has no end. It doesn't guarantee happiness, or success, or satisfaction, or love. It only leads to wanting more. Sheer madness. Now, Tom Shadyac could understand my words this morning. He's the director of the movie that we'll see next week. And I invite you to come. It's a great movie. It's worth seeing. And as an award-winning director, Shadyac had it all by human standards. I mean, he's earned millions of dollars having directed movies which I'm sure you've all seen, right? Ace Ventura, Bruce Almighty, Liar, Liar, The Nutty Professor. Might not be quite your genre, but trust me, he made a lot of money in all of those movies. And with the tremendous wealth, 8-figure salaries for directing movies, tremendous wealth. He accumulated homes, works of fine art. He even had private planes to chauffeur him around the country. He was able to afford everything that he wanted, and by all accounts was a stellar success. But he had a cycling accident, and that accident left him incapacitated, so much so that he longed for and welcomed death. He wanted to die. It's funny, isn't it? You have everything and you can't get well. Has a way of changing life's priorities, doesn't it? Now, the happy ending of the story for Shadyac was that he did get better. He got well, completely recovered, but he realized that the futility of his life just could not continue in the way that he had lived. He recognized that having more didn't guarantee happiness. It's like the Koheleth said, what was crooked could not be made straight. What was lacking could not be counted. Now, I don't know about you. I can't speak for you. I can't tell you what your priorities ought to be. But for me, I'm convinced that we've got to live beyond ourselves. For me, I am persuaded that we've got to serve more than just those near and dear to us. St. Augustine said it well. He said, determine what God has given you and take from it what you need. The remainder is needed by others. Said another way, God has gifted us and blessed us. And it's all right to do well and to prosper with what God has given to you. But each and every one of us here today, each and every one of us, stand as a testament in one way or another of God's blessings. And to turn our success, to turn our blessings inward such that we are the only beneficiaries, or those that we love who are near and dear to us are the only beneficiaries of our success. That's madness. That's folly. Because there's more to life than that. God has not blessed us to just bless ourselves. God has blessed us so that we would be a blessing. Gandhi put it another way. He said, live simply so that others could simply live. That's what we're called to do. What will people say when you die? Did you make a difference? Did you impact a life? Did you help somebody? Or did you only help yourself? In his I've been to the mountaintop address, the sermon that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the night before he died, King talked about wanting to live a long life. He said, longevity has its place. Nevertheless, he was linked to move the possibility of his death with the compelling drive to add his voice to the plight of striking sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee. And when he preached that night, he shared the narrative of the Good Samaritan. You know the story. He talked about the dangers of traveling that Jericho road. He imagined the inner conversation that might have happened with that priest and that Levite. You know, the ones that left the Jewish man on the Jericho road, robbed, beaten, and nearly dead. Because see, when they passed that man by, that inner conversation said, well, if I stop and help this man, what will happen to me? I mean, that's how dangerous the road was. But it was the Good Samaritan who flipped the script and turned the question around and said, if I do not stop and help this man, what will happen to him? You know, to this day, I will hear that sermon that King preached And it gives me goosebumps because I'm convinced that he knew that he was going to die. And yet that did not stop him from declaring with power and conviction that he did not fear death. Because helping somebody and challenging others to do the same was more important to him than his own life. Because as the song says, if I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody that he's traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. The ministry was not my first career, church. I've lived a life of trivial pursuits. I have been on a hamster wheel of consumption. I've had the kind of jobs and earned the kind of income that people envy and herald. I've been there. But I want something different now. I want to live a life that has impact. I want to make a difference. And more than that, I want to inspire others. I want to inspire you to make a difference for somebody other than you and those nearest and dearest to you. I want people to flourish because of what we do. If I died tomorrow, I want people to say, I made an impact. How about you? Amen.